can't. I'm in trouble. But we're going to get started. I guess I kind of opened my mouth last week and kind of quietly, I guess, and my wife broadcasted it. So I ended up getting called out to do the lesson this morning. And I would like to thank my preacher because he asked me Monday if I still wanted to do it, and I just got the questions and stuff yesterday morning, so I crammed a lot for it. But we'll go ahead and start in prayer. And Ian, would you open prayer, please?
Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to come here to worship you this morning, Lord. Lord, we got many things to be grateful for. We just want to thank you for each and everything that you do for us, Lord. Lord, we just ask and pray that you do it. Brother Joey, as you bring us our message this morning, let's apply it to our lives. And we pray.
That's what you get for being teacher's pet.
I almost said that.
I thought he was
Brother Dad.
Yeah, I don't think it would have mattered anyway.
Joey, go ahead and unmute real quick.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, my help.
I was fixing to say, I don't think it's
I'm not used to this stuff.
How's that? Okay. We're going to finish up the book of John, be 35 through 51. We'll hopefully not be much past 11, so if you have to leave for any reason, work or whatever, we'll get up and leave if needed. But if you leave in the next 5 minutes, then I'll probably know it's on me, okay? And we was all talking earlier, and there's a big difference between me standing up here and Brother Kevin, because I'm a teacher, not a preacher, so that T and P makes a huge difference. So, because I'm sure he's going to go back and look at this. So, and I will give a shout out to my mom. Hi, Mom. So, I don't get to do that. Yeah, hi, mother-in-law. Well, I don't get to do that very often, but we need to keep in mind, and 35 through 51, we're dealing with John's witness to the third group of his disciples. And this took place on the third day. And, John focuses all of his attention on his own disciples towards Jesus. He doesn't want to lift himself up or anything like that. Everything that he does and says is pointing towards Christ. And we got to keep in mind too that the John that wrote this is speaking of John the Baptist. And Brother Kevin's explained that several times, but he did give me the cheat sheet, but like I said earlier, I did go and make some more notes, and I had him check it to make sure. In verse, I guess I hit 50. I got to wear these things. So, verse 38, where it says right here, Jesus turned and saw them following. Do what? Do what?
Read the whole scripture.
Yes, I'm reading the scripture. Yeah, I know. Well, I'm here in 38.
All right, sorry.
I'm going to go through the questions that I have that I was given. So we're going to read. We're in 38. So if you can't pay attention like that, then
She's saying he reads the whole
Yeah.
scripture 35 through 51.
well, but he's the preacher. I'm just a teacher. So we're going to do some. We're going to sidetrack some things here.
No, you just tell them, say, I'm doing it like I want to.
That's right. That's right. I'm up here right now. If you want next week, you can have it.
There you go.
Verse 38, Jesus turned and saw them following and said to them, "What are you seeking?" And they said to him, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" The question here that we have is, in verse 38, why do you think that Jesus asked the question, "What are you seeking?" And this is kind of where y'all can help me out here too. But why do you think Jesus asked the question, why or what are you seeking? Because we already understand he knows. So he knows the question before he asks it. But why would he be asking that? What's y'all's opinion?
He wants to know what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Other purpose.
He's calling them. He's basically calling them out, and he wants to see their heart, I guess. I mean, for them to see what they're looking for. It says right here, could have been he was forcing them to define their purpose for coming to him, or at least to make them look inside at what they were doing to see why they really came to him. And some notes I added here, we may be forced to define our purpose. And by that, what are we seeking? When we are seeking Jesus, what's our purpose? Is it for we're going through a trial, or is it because we're happy, sad? I mean, there's different reasons we do seek Jesus. I think when we were,
at different times.
Yes.
We seek him for different reasons.
yes.
So that may be why he was asking, what do you want now?
Yeah, because I mean, it's kind of, I'll pick on my kids. There are two of them, two of the fours here. But, you know, it's kind of like, hey, Dad, okay, what do you want? You know, more than likely I already know, you know, not that I can see the future by any means, but it's usually, I need some money or something like that. So, but yes, you're exactly right. I mean, it's what's the reason the seeking is there. So,
Yeah, I think he knew what they were seeking, but he wanted to hear them say it. Speak up and say so.
I think it's, you know, to give an answer, you know, because apparently they knew who Christ was right at this time. So when you're giving an answer to him, it better be the right one, and it better be one that's going to be truthful. And for him to call them out, I mean, they're going to have to say exactly what's on their heart. And there's a couple other things here that Jesus was, and he wasn't ignorant to the fact that, I mean, he knew what they was looking for, but because he knows all things as God. But he asked in order that his question might start a conversation. They could have sought his favor. Also, there is an element in it of them wishing to become his disciples or to speak to him privately, to be instructed by his divine knowledge. But they also want to be acquainted with Christ and become servants and friends. They ask where he dwells, and this is out of Matthew 8:20. Christ has no place to lay his head, and we understand that. Foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So I would say that him asking that question with them, yes, he's forcing them to, reflect on their own heart and what they're really wanting. And like I said a while ago, with the kids asking me that, you know, it's of course it's a little different atmosphere, I guess, but it's like we stated, it's the time frame, what's going on, you know, what's happening. So a lot of those questions that we can get from that.
So why did they ask him, where are you staying?
That's what we're looking at here as far as I think that was around the 10th hour. I hope I'm right on that. Yeah, it should be 10 a.m. Is that right? Roughly, third hour. Or that he was around 10 a.m. And the thing we can figure out on that is, you know, they were seeking him maybe to follow him to see exactly what he was going to do, how to gain knowledge from him. You know, that was a thing kind of like if you've ever had anybody say, I know you're busy right now, but can I come with you later and we'll talk about this throughout the day or something like that? Because they had all day long to be with him at 10 o'clock in the morning. So he was actually just pretty much getting, you know, day getting started, you know, for a few hours.
Do you think when he asked where are you staying, or why they asked where you're staying so they would know where to find him later if they didn't stay with him?
To me, I can't say that or read that from Scripture, but in my view of it, I would say yes to a certain degree because I've thought about that. Yes, that'd probably be a better question for a preacher, but yes, I would say because that's, you know, I've asked that question to people before, you know, where are you staying or how can I get a hold of you, you know, just so we can talk later. So yes, I would think so. Any other questions or comments? I guess everybody got a sheet of paper. I didn't ask that, by the way, sorry. Okay, verse 40 identifies one of the disciples who was that followed Jesus. I'll go ahead and read verse 40. One of the two who heard John speak and followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. Okay, verse 40 identifies who one of the disciples was that followed Jesus, but who was the second one that left John the Baptist and followed that day? Who was the second one? Do what? John? Yes. Yes, it was the John, the writer of this gospel, not John the Baptist. Okay, but yes, it was John, and I will try to clarify that sometimes when I'm saying that. That way we know who we're talking about. But yes, it is John, the apostle. Do what?
That's great. I have trouble. John, figuring out
I do too. I have to make myself a lot of notes when I'm doing that because it is, because you're talking about John the Baptist, but John wrote it. So, but it was meant for us to understand that and read it. So, let's see, and I did have a note here on this. Yes, John the writer of the gospel was the other. John never identifies himself by name. He just doesn't want to confuse anything with John the Baptist. Let's see here. Apologize. I had them all in order a while ago, but we'll maybe. Well, that's going to be the next one. Okay. Number 3 in verse 41. We'll read that. He first found his own brother, Simon, and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. And to take a note from Kevin's lesson Sunday, found is the diligently searching for something and found it. So this is something they were actually constantly looking for. But the question in verse 41, Andrew finds his brother and says, "We have found the Messiah." What did this mean to Andrew and Peter? Again, in verse 41, we have found the Messiah. What did this mean for Andrew and Peter? What's y'all's take on that?
I think it's that the Savior that Moses had spoke of
Mm-hmm.
had come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Christ.
Do what?
Christ.
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that I wrote down here is it says, what kind of excitement and joy do we experience, after we're told something, especially as a child. If you have, I'm just going to use a vacation. If the kids want to go on a certain vacation and it's 2 months, 3 months down the road, you're constantly talking about it. And just keep in mind that that Andrew and Peter was talking to John about all this. So it's a consistent talking about it. So, how often, if you can reflect back and see the kids' excitement and joy when they actually get to there. To me, there was a lot of excitement because that had to have been a good feeling to understand you've been searching for something and for so long, and now it's here. And especially who they had been looking for from Old Testament till now. Let's see here. On my note on 3, it's talking about Andrew, where Andrew says, where Andrew finds his brother. One thing when you look at with Andrew's response to just about everything is bring it to Jesus. That's something I do fall short a lot in my life. I like to think that I do that, but in the same sense, it is sometimes getting in the worldview, or you get that, I've done this and all that, but Andrew consistently, it's take it to and bring it to Jesus. Whenever we find Andrew in John's writings, his Gospels, he's bringing someone to Christ. In John 1:41, he brings his brother. The boy with the loaves and the fishes is found in John 6:8. And the Greeks who wanted to see Jesus, that's in John 12:20 through 21. Second part of it here is, was there some confusion about the Messiah? What the Messiah was supposed to do, or even who he was supposed to be? Was there any confusion in that? Keep in mind, not everyone agreed with who he was. Not everyone agreed with why he was coming. There's a lot of different, teachings and beliefs back then. But what's y'all's take on that? What kind of confusion would there have been? And I'll read this. Not everyone agreed with what the Messiah would do. We do not know what Jesus would have shared with Andrew and John when they went to where Jesus was staying. Some of their commentaries thought the Messiah would be a suffering servant. Some thought he would be a splendid king. Some thought he would be a suffering sacrifice. Whatever it meant to them, it certainly piqued their interest. And I think if we break that down, we could probably say that he was all of them. I mean, that was something that he came to be the Savior of the world, but he came to do whatever it needed to be done. And it didn't matter, how you looked at him. in that manner. The overall fact is he came to fulfill prophecy. Any questions or comments on that?
So are you saying yes to both of those? Who he was supposed to, what he's supposed to do, they're supposed to be?
Well, I mean, what they're, because not everyone agreed, they would break it down and that he was going to be a king or the sacrifice. Not to me, not everyone thought that maybe he was going to be all of them, but he was going to be all of them.
We know even until after he was crucified, even the disciples that followed him all that time didn't totally get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, he was, he fulfilled everything that was, I guess, prophesied about him, but he was the king who he was supposed to have been. But he came, of course, we'll discuss this in a little bit. He came from Nazareth, but he was, to me, he was a splendid king. He came to do that. So, and he suffered to be a king. Any questions or comments? Like I said, if hopefully we're out, we're not past 11, but at this rate, we might be here, a little bit early. Get out of here.
We can make sure you don't if you want us to.
Well, to be honest, one of my probably biggest fears since last night and or yesterday morning when he gave me the questions is not knowing an answer if someone asks me, because that's something that when I do my lesson in Sunday school, I'll have 6 or 7 pages of notes, and I mean, we might get through half a page, which is good, but I try to because I even had Chandra read the questions this morning and say, what would you ask? That way I might be prepared if somebody did ask, because I don't know all the stuff. I mean, like I said, I'm not the preacher, but I would like to have an answer.
You need to call Mary and ask her that question. She's the one that comes up with the impossible questions.
Well, apparently, she was already informed to give me maybe some difficult questions if need be. So I appreciate that, Kevin. So
We're studying about the only one that do it all.
yes. And that's the only one we need.
And it's not you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay, number 4. Why do you think that some of Jesus' words to Simon was, "You shall be called Cephas," or Peter? We'll break it down there. But why do you think that some of Jesus' first words to Simon was, "You shall be called Cephas"? Because when he first sees him like that, he's explaining to him, your name's going to be changed. You're no longer going to be that. You're going to be Peter, which is going to mean break down as rock.
We could actually see what he was gonna use Peter for.
Mm-hmm.
He was weak and he wanted to transform him.
Yes, because that's something. One of the things I looked at is, was Peter, did he need that boost, I guess, especially coming from Jesus. I mean, Jesus already knew what he needed in his heart, so I mean, that was already going to be taken care of. But I think Peter might have been. The statement right here is it could have been a statement that you were not going to stay who you were. Of course, we understand that by his name being changed. And what if Peter suffered from a feeling of low self-esteem? That's what I was talking about there. And Jesus would have known this and now tells him, "You're going to be my rock."
Simon. Did you know what Simon meant? In my Bible says Simon means hot-tempered, volatile, and violent. So he didn't want that.
No. And he was a teetotally, that was the total opposite of what. And I think that goes along with, I think we can read this into it, that, when you become a child of God, when you give your life, you are to change opposite. Your life is to be now reflected on him and not the world. So you're to be a totally opposite person.
So should we all go changing our name?
Well, that just depends. I mean, I could tell the difference when I was younger and Mom would call me by one name or the other, especially when my middle name was brought into the equation. I knew that something was probably not going to be good when Dad got home. So it was kind of, so.
That's right.
Yeah, that's probably, I might as well go ahead and dial 911 at that time. Because that probably would have not been good at all. But on let's see, I'll get over into some of my notes here on verse 4. Do what? I am? Yeah. Yeah, and if you haven't heard, the Ian is in Florida right now.
Oh, yes.
So I texted him yesterday and I said, I didn't know you was going to Florida because they're all preparing for you right now. So yes, I think that might have been the phone call from the governor I got the other day on what to name that hurricane, because it'd been him. No, he's a good boy. But of course, Cephas means Peter, but Peter is in the Greek, and Cephas would have been in the Aramaic language, which is what Jesus spoke. But of course, he knew both Greek and Aramaic. It wouldn't have mattered. But both of them do mean rock. Was this a display of the boldness that they were to have? That's the second part. Yes, it was. It did speak to Peter and all who knew him about how he would change, and this kind of goes with what we just discussed. He was going to be not basically anywhere near what he was now. He's going to be. I mean, I sit there and tried to in a class. I usually try to say I try to look and read the time frame and try to put myself in that situation. I could not imagine even the knowledge that we all know in this room, that Christ's coming to me right now and saying, you're going to be a rock. I'm thinking, is because I know my failures, and I'd be shocked. I mean, but this is, Peter, did he understand it? I mean, did he welcome it? I mean, he is being told that he's going to be something 100% opposite of what he is now. So, but I think that is something that would be a display of their boldness. What did it say about what Jesus would do with Peter? Somebody get Matthew 16:18. You don't care if somebody can read that. But what would it say, or I'm sorry, what did it say about what Jesus would do with or to Peter? Who's got that? Anybody?
Chapter 16, verse 18.
Yes. Read it loud.
And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.
Yeah. That's a bold statement.
Yes.
I mean, of course, it's a true statement when Christ says that.
Don't you think Peter's heart just about to come out of his chest?
I think so.
He knows his failures just like we know ours. And for God to come up and say that, I bet his heart just dropped.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and like I said, I hope anything I say in here that Kevin doesn't have to go back and fix and take care of. But anyhow, I do like that, because I think the same way. And, of course, I think we need to understand that, this is kind of a new to him. He's just now being introduced to Christ and all this is so, but they knew from Old Testament who he was going to be, the power he had and what he was here to do. And I would think that he had to have thought, there's no earthly way that you're going to build your church on me because of who I am now. So that would be a real eye-opening. I mean, I think humanly speaking, I think I would have trouble believing it.
There was some in the Bible that, like the older women, when God told them they would become mothers, and they laughed.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of probably what he did, is, yeah, right.
I mean, like was it Abraham? Son of Abraham?
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's. I mean, I'd like to. What's the statement? Being a fly on the wall. I mean, I would like to have seen that conversation, because that was the life changing for Peter to know that the church he's going to be that strong, but yet at this point he's not, but he is fixing to be, and so that says a lot to the power of Christ, that he's fixing to take this gentleman right here, and he's going to become now basically the pillar in the corner. I mean, he's going to start it. Of course, we know Christ was the cornerstone. But any other questions or comments on that?
The part, how does this fit into our lives today, is that the church, who have the church Would that be the answer to that?
Let's see.
You kind of.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, okay. Overlooked that one. How does it fit into our lives today? And what was your statement?
We have the church.
Yeah, and I think too that, I mean, Christ calls us maybe not to be, where the church is going to be founded on, but I think that in the same sense that we are called to be a unit as a church. So I think that, do what?
Be an example.
Yes.
I wrote down be bold, committed. Yeah, did you?
To be a stone in the
Yes.
church, not the cornerstone necessarily, but to be a stone because I feel like that if you're a Christian, you have a very special heart. You can affect a lot of people's lives by the way that they say, well, he's a Christian, look at the way he's acting. It's really a tough line to toe because you gotta watch that you just don't,
We live in glass houses.
Yeah, if you're a Christian, yeah, you live in a glass house or a bubble. I mean, then.
Mom walked out of Walmart and thought, man, I shouldn't act like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, or if you get road rage or something like that, But, I mean, even with if that, if we can tie it into our lives today, I mean, just because Christ doesn't speak to us in person, like Peter was, doesn't mean that we're not called to be, bold and to be basically the church. I think with Peter, I mean, he had to have a whirlwind of thoughts. I mean, to be told that, and it's going to be mind-blowing of how he thought that. But even with us, I mean, there's people that, I mean, I guess when I went to my class reunions and I'm not the same person I was when I was 17, 18 years old. Thank the good Lord for that. But I wasn't called to preach by any means. But I think I might have been called to teach because I do enjoy that, other than being nervous and this and being camera shy, but other than that.
I think even though he doesn't speak to us because he's not with us like he was with them,
Yeah.
we still know what he expects from us. We still know what our expectations are and what we should be doing.
Yeah, but, and yes, a good point to add to that is, he didn't have the Spirit living in him at that moment. And we do, we have God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. So we have that gift as children of God. So we don't need Christ to physically be in front of us to speak. He's already in us, and he's already speaking to us. So there is a little bit of a difference right there. But yes, we have to understand that, I mean, just because he's not standing in front of us, because I'm a very tangible person. When I see something, I can hold it and I can feel it. Yes, it's easier for me to understand that. So I do, a lot of mine is off faith because I have to. But yes, I think with...
God calls you forth to do a job. He will equip you that
He will.
you can do that, whether you're equipped. He will see that you are able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we, look back and think, man, I can't believe I actually knew that, or I felt comfortable in that position. And that's because, he's already in us. I mean, we have that knowledge, and we know that about Scripture, that we have that in us.
Wow, where'd that come from?
Yeah. But yeah, that's we all have that, especially as children of God.
He's talking about with Christ being there with him, and today we have the Spirit. Back then, I don't think it was as easy to argue with Christ face to face as it is for us to not really argue, but kind of question it and step back and pull ourselves away. Face to face, you can't do that. So Peter's probably thinking, man, I have nowhere to go, basically. At least if you're, if you're just not tangible, you can kind of argue it in your mind, more or less, and think, well, is this really real or not? But face to face, there's no doubt.
Yeah, you have to come up with answers really quickly, because if you're going to have an argument with someone face to face, not that you should, but if you have that versus on a texting, there's a major difference between those two conversations. So, number 5. How did Andrew and John come to Christ? To trust Christ. How did Andrew and John come to trust Christ? That's in number 5.
Was it through the preaching and teaching of John the Baptist?
Yes. Yep, that's exactly right. Like I said, sorry I'm shuffling a lot. I had them all labeled here. Okay, yeah. They get through the faithful teaching of John the Baptist, and that was, of course, the cheat sheet that I got from Brother Kevin, but I underlined faithful in this because, I will say that, and I'm not saying it just because the preacher's not here, but, to be, I think, someone like him that is faithful to his church and teach, to start other groups and like D groups and stuff like that to teach. I think that with Andrew and John, when they come to trust Christ, it says also who influenced them. Did they just find Christ on their own? Of course, that's not. And we'll go back and read the answer again. Through the faithful teaching of John the Baptist. Remember, he is the one who said, "Behold, the Lamb of God." And these two went to learn more about Jesus. And the note I had put on here that we need to keep in mind that this actually made John the Baptist happy. It's not like, if I was mentoring a few people and then they left to go follow somebody else, then I think with me that would hurt my feelings. But we got to take that out of the equation and realize what's going on here is that John the Baptist has been preaching this and teaching us faithfully, that all these people around him understand exactly who Christ is by his faithful witnessing. So when they left him, and if you can jump ahead to John 3:30, but when they left, this made John happy because of his teaching. But I think in 3:30 it says he must increase, and the he in this is Jesus. So he must increase. So that means that he's going to have followers. So John the Baptist already knew that. But I, which is John, must decrease. So John already knew this was coming. He knew that for Christ to increase, I must decrease. So that's what we have to keep in mind on that, because this was already, he knew was coming. So when he made that statement. Let's see here.
Mine on the, Christians, did they find Christ on their own? I've got in mine, it says they came to Christ because of their compassionate work of the brothers. So don't you think that's how we need to be around people like you were saying earlier, Mary, how we're looked upon? So we've got to be compassionate about what we're doing for the Lord and shine.
Oh yeah, I think especially as Christians. I mean, even being like the groups, even small groups, it doesn't matter. Just being here to be able to share witness and to be helping one another. Because even in this room, there's going to be different walks of knowledge of the Bible, knowledge of, but we have one thing in common, and that's we all have the same God. We all have the same Spirit in us.
And by being here, we all have the same interest and enthusiasm to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So I think with what you said there, did they just find Christ on their own? No, I think this goes back to the faithful witnessing of John the Baptist. And, and I don't want to make it sound like John the Baptist is exactly why that they found Christ, but his faithful, and that's why I underlined faithful. It wasn't hey, here's a Bible, you can read it. If you got any questions, ask me. If I'd done that, especially in the King James Version, which, I had to look at it cross-eyed a lot because I had to thee and does and all that, So that would be scary to a lot of people, especially a new Christian. So I believe in that it has to be faithful witnessing, faithful discussions, whatever it is, as long as it's faithful in Christ, it's going to come out good anyway. We know that.
That's why we have to be accountable. That's why, when I do something silly or ask, I go to Tim, am I wrong in this? Because I know she's going to tell me the truth, whether I like it or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. That hurts sometimes, but we need it for sure.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it.
You say I get an A+ on that?
Yes.
And let's say, and I just made a comment here, so this is, we already discussed it, where we need to point others to Christ. I'm not going to, of course, I'm not going to say any names, because they're deceased now, but I struggled with this probably a few weeks back. I knew the individual was based on, I'm not saying this not Christ being there, but humanly, medically, he was passing because of the illness he had. I had some conversations with him, but I kind of felt horrible because I thought he was a Christian, which he was. So I'm not going there, but I did not ever ask that question, and that hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm thinking, just because I thought that was not right. I should have known, and then in my conversation with him, it should have been, I should have 100% knew that question, especially knowing that he's leaving. And but I'm glad that he was. So that kind of opened me up really quick that's where I need to work on a lot of things on that. Let's see. Number 6.
I really find it so hard to talk to somebody about that, especially family members.
Family's the worst.
And family's the hardest.
I feel like we may not think that we're equipped enough to talk
Mhm.
about it, not know the answers that they have.
Or if you feel that
because-
God's gonna give you the words, like, that's what you were saying earlier, where do they come from? I didn't, that's what Susie said a while ago, you get your words, and you're like, oh, I didn't matter. It's the Holy
I know when I was
Spirit.
going to talk to my dad, I actually had a preacher go talk to him. For some reason, I couldn't find it in me to talk to him, and the preacher was his best friend and has been for years and years and years. So, Carl went and talked to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he assured me that Dad was. But why do I find it so hard to go? Because that's one of the most important decisions you can make.
And I personally, me answering the question, I'm with you on that. But what you just said is exactly how I feel, because it's we know what this gift is that we have. We know the importance of it. I don't want to mess it up giving it away. But there again, I need to have enough faith in saying, okay, I'm going to give this gift to you. It may be, because it may not be wrapped perfectly, but this gift is going to be, so to me, it's kind of like, I don't want to mess up this gift that I know has this enough significance in their life. And it is kind of frightening.
I think also on a human, like, talking to your family, like, they know your mistakes. So going and talk to them, be like, hey, this, like, they could take it as wrong as you're, maybe being mean, because, I don't know, that's just how I view it, like, because they know your mistakes.
Family
Yeah,
knows you better than
that's
anybody.
true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's true. Number 6, what evidence do we have that Philip truly trusted in Jesus and lived out his faith?
Well, he told Nathaniel,
Yes.
and Nathaniel questioned it, so I feel like sometimes when we're around friends and they question something, you're like, oh, never mind. So, Philip could have done that when he told Nathaniel.
He did.
Nathaniel's response.
Mm-hmm.
God, he preached and performed miracles in Samaria, so he went on and did the work.
Yeah, because in the answer I got here, he went and witnessed to Nathaniel, which is what we discussed, but he also brought him to see Jesus. So he had enough faith and knew enough that I just need to bring him to Jesus to see him. And that's, even as we witness, we go out here into this world now, which is scary a lot of times. All we have to do is bring them to Jesus. That's all we have to do. I'm not saying that we shouldn't live and do the things that's right, but if that's the one act we do, then we're okay to get them there, because Christ is going to do the rest of it. Now, granted, we don't need to bring them to Jesus and then go hit a bar and all this stuff, but we need to understand that if we can get them to Jesus, then he's going to take care of the rest, and then we just live our life for Christ, and that's our main goal on that.
I think if we would just be more comfortable in sharing what Jesus has done for us,
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to try to talk them into it. You can just say, this is what happened to me, and leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
And people are curious enough, a lot of times they'll come around and
Yeah, they'll stir on that question and be
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to know more.
Yeah, a lot of times, and you're right, if we could just give us, a short testimony of how God changed us, then that may spark the interest, and it's all it's needed, for more conversation. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it does get a little bit scary, like we were discussing with family, and it shouldn't be. I mean, our family is, even my family now, I've got my immediate family here, but I also got my church family. And I mean, I'm closer to my church family than, I've got cousins, I have no idea who they are, their names, where they live at, but I know where most of the church lives. I know most of their names, their kids. So, I mean, it does get kind of scary to, speak with your outside family sometimes. Okay, number 7, from Acts 24:5. What do we learn about people from Nazareth? I'll go ahead and read the rest of it. Could this line of thinking be what causes Nathanael to doubt in the beginning? Is it fair for us to form opinions about others based on where they come from? And do we do this? I'll answer the last one real quick. Yes, I do that. It's easy to do, and I hate to say that, but usually, and I think I like to say nearly all the time, I'm called out real quick by the Spirit to say, you can't do that. But it is easy to make assumptions of someone from where they're from.
We all do that. We say, ooh, they're really from a good family, or man, they come from a rowdy bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do, and you're right. Sometimes you think, let me get to know that person.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I think that we do is that even not just who they come from, but where, such as you see somebody they look like they're from the Taliban or something.
Yes.
And your first impression is get away.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in an airport or somewhere, you're watching them. And they have a soul just like I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just because of the world, the way it is today, it puts everybody on a special alert, and we have to really watch ourselves because that person needs God just like we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because what Nathaniel's discussing basically here, I'm gonna read the answer that I have here. There seemed to be a sect from Nazareth that was known for making trouble. Opinions were formed about Jesus just because he was from another town, and yet the town or the town people should not and did not define Jesus. We do form opinions about people from what country they are from, or the way they dress, the generation that they're a part of. I've dealt with and seen a lot of this, especially in, and I'm just going to use someone I've got a lot of friends that, they'll come in here, and if they had a lot of, tattoos and they're dressed in leather and all that, I mean, that's the first thing you think of, a biker, and they, they're kind of scary, or what. And you get to talking to them, and a lot of them are, I've dealt and talked to a lot of Christians that look like that. But I judgment right there quick, and I put them in a box. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like what I dealt with when I went to Ecuador. I was put in a box by the young kids, the little ones, because I was opposite. There they have hair on their heads and no beards, so I'm totally opposite. And when we're sitting there dealing with them, these kids would look at me and just start bawling. And I felt horrible because I love kids. I wanted to pick them up and hold them. They were scared to death of me because I was not something that they was used to. I was outside their norm.
Your son let him in on a few secrets.
Do what?
He said,
He let him in on
your
some
son
secrets.
let them in on a few secrets.
Oh, okay. Is that what it is? Well, I hope I didn't scare them too bad. But so yes, even the young ones can form impressions, but to me, it's a little bit more innocent than mine would be because they don't know. But yes, we all do that from young enough. These kids they couldn't speak. They just little ones. They just had suckers and all that, but they couldn't even talk yet. They could barely walk, but yet they were scared to death of me just because of my appearance. So, I mean, I do, and I am bad about that. And that's something I have to constantly work on because it's
Feels
kind of,
weird being on the other end, don't it?
it does. It does.
Because this is what we're used
Yes,
to,
exactly.
you know, and somebody comes in with the rag on their head, we're really worried, but yet over there, that's nothing but something like, you know, it's weird being on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, it is, because I mean, I kept figuring, I mean, I was like, why are they just upset and, you know, screaming? And one of the people there, they said, because and they done this because of my appearance, you know, so. But yeah, we do form it, even at a young age.
They were a little questionable about why somebody has red hair too.
Yes, yeah, because she's a very odd, well, not odd, rare commodity over in Ecuador.
See, if Brother Kevin had been standing there, I would have had a totally different answer for that.
Well, you come back tonight and you can give him a totally different answer. Or if you want to, y'all can text him all the answers you want after a while and blow his phone up. Okay, number 8. What statement does Philip make to let us know he was a quick learner, or that he was just repeating what he saw in Jesus? I'll read the answer here real quick. His response to Nathanael is for him to come and see Jesus. Jesus told Philip to follow him. Whenever we get people to Jesus, good things happen, and we discussed that a while ago. We may have been just doing what had worked in his life. We do this sometimes. One of the things that I underlined here was repeating. You know, what statement does Philip make? Is he a quick learner? How many times do our kids mimic us? You know, and how many times do, even if we're in a work atmosphere and we see somebody excelling, you know, do we try to mimic what they're doing, you know? So I think, you know, especially if we're mimicking Christ, that means that we are studying him, we are getting to know him, we're understanding what works. So I think that if it's just something we're going to keep repeating, then I think that's, you know, our studying of Christ and studying of what we're trying to define. What y'all's take on it? What statement does Philip make to let us know he was a quick learner, or that he was just repeating what he saw in Jesus? Or is the answer I gave you sufficient? Sufficient? Okay.
She's a retired teacher.
Well, if a teacher passes it, then okay, I'm good.
Well, I think he had an excitement too, because he was like, "Oh, come and see you."
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's because, you know, this is, and I'm not knock my wife because of this, but she knows it's kind of like, you know, if one of the dogs is doing something, you know, look, see this, come here and look at this. I mean, it's kind of like, she's excited because, you know, the dog's doing a trick by laying there, you know, or putting a stick in its mouth or whatever. But yet she's excited that it's learning something new and she wants me to come see it. So that's kind of she knows that, yeah, she's taking her tongue out, but she knows that, you know, she'll be like, look at this. I'm like, really? I don't want to come look at it. It's exciting you. Yeah. So yes, we do have an excitement sometimes to come and see. And when we do that, we want others to see, whether they want to or not. I mean, we're trying to bring someone else there. Okay, number 9. What is verse 51 in reference to in the Old Testament? Anybody know that?
Is that the name change?
I put, and I'm probably all wrong, but I put in Genesis 28:12, Jacob dreamed about a ladder between heaven and earth with angels on it. Jesus is making a subtle reference to the reason for his ministry, to make a connection between man and God.
Well, for a teacher, you got an A right there, because that's it.
Just doubted myself.
I said a while ago, you probably know more than what you think. And the time when Jacob, this is when the time when Jacob thought he was alone and God showed Jacob he has sent angels to guard him and guide him. But yes, that's in reference to Jacob's ladder. Because Jesus is the living link between heaven and earth, which explains his reference to Jacob's ladder in Genesis 28. Christ is God's ladder between heaven and earth. John 14:6 says, "No man cometh to the Father but by me." And note, you will find that Jesus is reminding the people that he came down from heaven. This is not to say, do not take out of this that I said that Jesus came down on a ladder, okay? So Don't think that's what I'm saying, that's not. But that's in reference to, to that. What does this assure us of even today? We're not alone at all. It says here, we're not alone either. Neither would the apostles be alone, but they would experience Jesus being present in their life through the Holy Spirit after Jesus ascended. And even in that statement right there, we can change and put ourselves there, because we do have the living Holy Spirit in us as well. Those are who are children of God. We'll get to the last one here, and we're making pretty good. We almost made it an hour, didn't we? Okay, this one's quick and easy. Okay, this is what even Kevin, last night I said, is that all the answer I'm going to get on this one? So he said that one's just kind of, to drive it home and fill it up here. At the end of this chapter, how many people do we know that believe in Jesus as the Son of God? That's 6 men that would become apostles, and then John the Baptist. All of them. There you go. Yeah, I've taught him well. That's an answer that he said all of them. So that'd be an answer that he would give on a test, probably in school. So, and you might want to talk to the teacher here about that, son. You can't. It's probably not an answer you want to give.
You have to name them.
Yeah. Now we may be in trouble.
Yes, for all of us.
Yes. At the end of our life, and we do not know when that's coming. I mean, it could be tomorrow, next week, a year, 10 years. But how many are believers because we showed them Christ? How many, I'm not saying that we can make a count, but it's almost that we should make a count of how many people we attempt to bring to Christ. I mean, we can bring them, we can't make them accept Jesus, but we can offer to bring them. So, I mean, in reality, and I don't want to start my checklist right now by any means and start showing you how many I have, because I'd probably be embarrassed. But how many people, would we talk to more than one person a day? 2 people, 3 people? How hard would it be to invite one person? Especially if you have a conversation, especially if you go to Walmart. I mean, there's all kinds of conversation you can have in there. I mean, or any place like that. But that's something that I think that would be good for us to all work on.
I mean, at least planting a seed so they know.
If you see an irate customer, you go up and ask them, they know Jesus, they know
That, yeah, you may want to let it calm down a little bit before you go say that, but yes.
This question at the end of our lives reminds me, I don't know if you've heard the song, Thank You. And it talks about a person that had went to heaven, and they saw a person, and they said, because of you, you were my Sunday school teacher, and because of you, I'm here today. And then they went through, and another one said, because you gave money is the reason I'm here. And that's what I think of is, at the end of our life, how many people are going to be in heaven because we set an example. And I think of Miss Donna Schaefer, because she was a teacher for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling how many lives and how many will be in heaven and saying, because you put the idea, you put the in my heart that I needed God, and therefore I went further and further.
Well, I mean, and how many, how many, like, I'll use myself as an example, and I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I wasn't. And it took several years for me to understand who Christ was. So in our conversations and when we're dealing with people, it may be 10 years, it may be 20 years before but yes, like with Miss Donna, yeah, because she's if you say that in this church, everybody knows who Miss Donna is. Mm-hmm. Especially most kids, there's...
Even my kids, as
had
old as they are, they had Miss Donna, and they just loved her.
Mm-hmm.
And she has probably touched more hearts than even she knows.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any kid that's ever had Miss Donna has disliked her.
Sweetheart.
Yeah,
She's just a good teacher.
yeah.
She even thought he was good.
Bless her heart.
In our class though, I know she had younger kids, but she still broke it down to where you could understand it even at a younger age. Like she just knew the Bible and knew how to break it down.
Yeah.
Just people like that, I agree.
And that's, I also take that too. I believe that's something that we can all do. Even if it's one person or 2, so maybe we all need to start our checklist this week and, see if we can tally up some good numbers. Anything else to add to that? If not, we're making pretty good time. Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and close out and do prayer request. You good back there?